beginning, the Porsche Cayenne has carved out a distinctive niche as a sporty four-door, four-seat machine.
Porsche is a sports car brand. It's a brand built on performance, but it's not an exotic brand. I mean, everyone has seen a Porsche. Not everyone has seen a Lamborghini or a Bentley in their lives.
The semi-bespoke machines are offered in a variety of trim levels, with base models starting around €50,000, while the top-of-the-line versions run all the way up to a staggering $126,000 price point.
Like the sports cars, the Cayenne's available in a number of different models. There's a base Cayenne, there's Cayenne S, Cayenne GTS, Cayenne Turbo S.
The multiple variations have different powertrains, yet every single one is built in the very same way inside the final assembly hall, thanks to a very simple but ingenious jig.
In order to make our process more efficient, we use different color codes. We have only one sled for different engines, and the worker puts the right color, and his sled is then specific for his engine. So right now, here you can see that the color red is V60 FSI, and all his pins are set for the red color, so we make sure we have the correct motor with the correct position.
Mated engines then move by an overhead hanger to the drivetrain sub-assembly line.
The whole car is put down here. The motor is put inside, and the whole undercarriage is completed, and it carries on along this line to the next over there.
A station later, they build the suspension up piece by piece, starting with the air springs. The air suspension system is capable of raising or lowering the Cayenne over 100 millimeters, depending on the driving mode that's selected.
Porsche has always prided themselves in building daily driver sports cars that you could drive every day if you wanted to. The Cayenne sort of took that to the next level by making actually a practical SUV. They just infused it with some Porsche performance, and that made it sort of unique.
Some of that performance is infused one station later when they add a dynamic chassis control unit. The electromechanical anti-roll system prevents body lean during hard lateral acceleration in a corner. The next step is to bolt on a very special hand-me-down from the 911 GT3. A rear wheel steering system that allows the Cayenne to turn extremely tightly. When the system is engaged and a driver moves the steering wheel to the right, the rear wheels turn slightly to the left. This sharpens the machine's turn-in and allows for easier parking maneuvers. Soon it's time to hit the brakes. Workers add both the standard iron rotors and the new, optional carbide-coated units, which reduce brake dust by 90%. Finally, they install the center differential, which allows the machine to send power to different wheels when needed. Finished powertrains are then moved to the next line.
This is the wedding, the powertrain coming from sub-assembly and meeting his body and putting together. It's one of the crucial operations. The car gets his hearth, his engine, his transmission, axle, tank, his housing system, everything that you can drive.
Most automotive factories have one critical engine marriage station. But inside the Bratislava facility, they use 6 different cells to bolt the powertrain into place.
We have 6 stations where the automatic machines screw the screws, and for the quality issue, it's important to have reliable systems.
Shortly after the marriage cells, the team adds the front and rear bumpers.
We are approximately in the middle of the assembly line, where we can see how the bumpers are being installed on the car.
Once again, the factory's ergonomics are on display.
You can see that our height is adjusted exactly. We do this to ensure that ergonomy is optimal for our production workers.
The front bumper of the machine is particularly important because it hides a very powerful secret. The Cayenne features an electrically adjustable grille that can open or close to help minimize drag at speed or enhance engine cooling at a dead stop. Further down the line, the machine enters Build Area 5, where it receives its high-performance rubber.
Susanna is about to install the wheels on the Porsche, which is really essential for the car. You can see that the manipulator comes automatically to the exact position where the worker just pulls the trigger and the spinners turn at the same time. The wheel is being installed. We are getting them in a sequence, front wheel, rear wheel, exactly as the cars are being produced.
Most car factories use one hoist to lift the wheel and another tool to tighten it into place. But here, a single device does both jobs.
We put the wheel on the car and we tighten the bolts with the one manipulator. We don't need to use two of them as is used in most of the companies.
On the next line, the remainder of the interior goes in.
We are here in BA6, which is a center console assembly. We are getting it just in time for our supplier. There is a lot of cabling inside. It is all made customer specific, and each car is special.
Porsche, unlike the other German brands, has resisted having controller, like an iDrive style controller to control everything. They'll either have a button or they'll have a touchscreen.
We are here in section 6, where the front seats are being installed, as you see here.
In my workplace, we put the seats and doors in the car, and the machines are helping us. They grab the parts and install them with precision.
The seats arrive just before they're needed and perfectly match the build sequence. The lean manufacturing allows for a vast amount of options.
If you order a Porsche, the number of options are dizzying. It can take you weeks to spec one out. You can pick different stitching, you can pick leather dashboards, different leather colors. Anything and everything seems possible option-wise, which is kind of cool and something that's unique in the market.
We get many different options of the seats. We have the 14-way, 18-way, movable with memory function, and you can also choose many different stitches. The possibilities in the Porsche world are almost unlimited.
It certainly costs a lot of money if you start ticking every single option box and you get leather vents and things like that, but that's something that's really only available in far more expensive vehicles.
Once the seats go in, it's time to complete the interior with a variety of parts and pieces.
Here we are near to end where most of the body is finished. We had the Powertrain installed, we have the electricity, the cables are laid, and we are in the very final part where the interior is being finished.
Porsche interiors are, for the most part, very driver-centric. They're less about the passengers. Everything is set up for the driver to utilize without devoting too much attention from the road. So everything's close by and logically arranged.
After 7.5 hours, it's finally time to twist the key, fire up a new Cayenne for the first time.
Favorite station is probably end of the line, when I see the final product and I can see the product is okay. That's a really good feeling.
A really good feeling that echoes throughout the build hall.
It is certainly a nice feeling when we see the result of our work. When we try so hard and spend long hours on it, and then it is a nice feeling seeing the final result.
The machines look finished, but they still have a very important date with the quality control department.
We are at the end of the finish line. That means there is the final control here, which checks the car. We call it ZP8. And here, the control workers, as you can see, check the cars and give the last look over, that everything is correct.
Finished Cayennes are celebrated in Slovakia as a stamp of approval for their burgeoning assembly prowess. Yet they're also cherished around the world as the most successful Porsche model over the past decade and a half.
society and the customer base of Porsche changed. At the beginning, there were industrials and aristocrats who bought Porsche sports cars. This changed and the Porsche became a perfect all-day sports car.
A perfect everyday sports car wrapped in an SUV's body.
You have a Porsche that's kid-tested and mom-approved, right? You have the ability to have a Porsche that doesn't conflict with your obligations as a parent. People are going to gravitate towards that.
The Cayenne is so successful and so important now, they can't make it radically different because they might scare off a whole bunch of their customers. And if they lose a whole bunch of Cayenne sales, that screws up their entire business plan. The third generation is an evolution. It doesn't mess with success. It doesn't ask the customer to come in and say, oh man, I don't know if I like this new one or not. It says, here's everything you liked about the last one with some new technology and a little new style. Nothing's going to turn you off, just better.
The business case might be safe, but the driving experience is still completely Porsche.
They're really alive. They're really direct. The steering is really precise. They're cars that really want to race. And they sort of feel like they have a racing heritage, even though they will probably go nowhere near a racetrack.
When you get into a Porsche, you feel like the person who designed the way the brake pedal feels is the same person who designed the way the steering feels. So the car responds as a whole. They have this cohesion to them that is really unmatched by any other car company.
The engines are incredibly powerful, and they sound really good too. So it's this full sensory experience that you get in a Porsche that you don't necessarily get in some other SUVs.
It's the machine that helped launch the sporty SUV era. A vehicle that changed the fate and fortunes of an entire brand. And an SUV that altered the automotive landscape all by itself. The third generation Porsche Cayenne.
The success of the Cayenne inspired basically every European manufacturer to build SUVs. Things like the Maserati Levante are directly a response that just took the Italians a while. But everyone wanted to be in the Cayenne game. They saw what it did for Porsche's bottom line, and they wanted that for their bottom line too.
We're at a point in history where the sedan is dying. And when you look in the luxury marketplace, SUVs dominate. So even though it was a small kernel at the beginning, which was mostly pioneered by Porsche, the SUV as a whole will be the dominant force, period.
That's just the thing with the Cayenne. It's as special as the sports cars are to the SUV world. The Cayenne is what the sports cars are to the car world. It just drives really well. It's fun to drive, and it just sets itself apart a little bit by being a little sportier and being a little more fun than the rest of the SUVs.